welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
My name is Joe.
In today's video, we're going to talk about 5 realities that you will realize after being in an entanglement with a narcissist. These are by no means the only 5. These are just 5 that Joe and I thought of off the top of our heads. We really appreciate you being here with us, and it really helps us out if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, so please don't forget to do that. You know, now that Joe and I are living together, we can be more involved with YouTube as a team, and it's been really fun. Recently, we've been reading and responding to comments together at night, so don't forget to say hi and give us your thoughts. So these 5 are in no particular order, and I think I'll just go right into it. Does that sound good, Joe?
Sounds like a plan, Sharon.
All right, so the first one that I'm going to talk about, or we're going to talk about, is that everybody heals differently and at different times.
Yeah, that stinks. You know, I remember when I was researching NPD and was watching videos, there came a point where it's like, okay, let me watch a video that's going to tell me how long this is going to take and when I'm going to get better. And, you know, even if it was like 2 years or 3 years, it's like, okay, like I'll set the pace. But, you know, the sucky part is the waiting, you know, because while you're waiting, you got to be doing work. For me, it was a very, very slow process. It was not just recovery from narcissistic abuse, it was recovery from codependency, it was recovery from my own trauma, it was forgiving myself, it was just a whole multitude of things, feelings that I never knew I had. I was, you know, hypervigilant, CPTSD. It was just, what happened though is I began to work on my relationship with God and myself, is that I started getting, every once in a blue moon, a moment of peace and serenity. It was like, wow, like it was all worth it. And those moments got closer and closer. It was like riding a roller coaster with these gigantic hills and big dips. And the track of the roller coaster it was a long track it got into where there was like these little hills, but it was just not as extreme. You know, I began to realize I faced my worst fear, my worst nightmare. There was nothing else that I had to be worried about. My friends would constantly tell me like, okay, it's over, Joe, you know, it's behind you now. And I was living as if it was still happening to me. It was horrible. It was a long process for me, to be honest with you, Sharon.
You know, Joe and I have had very different experience when it comes to healing. My healing seemed almost immediate. And at times I kind of almost had survivor's guilt over it because I watched Joe suffer so drastically. But, you know, part of when Joe and I do the channel is we kind of give you a male and a female perspective. We have like that difference, you know, and I think when it comes to healing specifically, you know, if we're going to talk about that, we also have a difference there. So, you know, there's that whole, you know, from one extreme to the other, and everybody falls somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, I remember the famous Shakespeare quote, "This too shall pass," and just remembering, like, when the hell is it going to pass? I only know this, like, I believe truly, like, that experience, that serenity and peace, if you work for it, it may happen quickly, it may happen slowly, but I remember just saying to myself, like, don't quit until the miracle happens. I always had the option, like, I didn't want to live and I didn't want to die at one point. I always had the option for the latter, but I wanted to see just in case, you know, and I remember telling myself, like, after I went no contact, the withdrawal symptoms from the narcissist and the pain, is like, I knew there had to be a better way. And when I reached out, I cried for help to God. It was like I was beyond human aid. And the conscious contact, the manifestation of a relationship with him, it is real. It is. Oh my God, many, many moons of pain, but it was all worth it.
You know, when you said that, don't quit until the miracle happens, I love that. And you say that all the time, and it's so true. And it just made me think about this. You know, Joe and I have this big difference in healing. But there are other things, you know, that were quicker for him than me, and vice versa. I want to tell you guys something. Today was a very important day for me, a day that I never thought was going to happen. And I know this is a little bit off subject, but it made me think of that when you said, don't quit until the miracle happens. Today was the day that my ex was given the divorce papers. I never thought it was going to happen, ever. In a million years, I thought I was going to be stuck forever. So here's Joe talking about how he thought that he was going to be stuck. He was just not going to heal. When is this going to end? Is it going to end? Similarly, I know it's a little bit different, but I didn't think I was ever going to be able to get out of this entanglement. If you hold on, it will happen for everybody. There is an end. I might not be able to tell you the exact date, but if you hold on, I promise you it's going to end. So, Joe, why don't we go ahead and get into the second one, learning to trust yourself.
That too was a long process. When I started getting honest with myself, after narcissists had left, as I said, like the real pain of withdrawal began to kick in. I began to use my insight to kind of get an idea of. I recognized that the narcissist wasn't my biggest problem. Like the narcissist was gone out of my life. Why was I so, up in the air and on edge and just depressed? And I remember saying to myself, my best thinking got me entangled with a narcissist. And I, I didn't look at my, I didn't look at the red flags. I didn't trust my gut instinct. So I was scared. I realized that I don't know all the time what's best for me. So my recovery had to do with replacing that entanglement with a relationship with a God of my understanding. Like I couldn't necessarily trust myself. I remember saying to myself, okay, Joe, no major decisions for a while. As I began to trust God, I began to realize that He did for me what I couldn't do for myself. There was a divine intervention. There was a removal of the narcissist from me. And as I did that, I began to learn to love myself because my Creator did that for me. God doesn't make garbage. And my self-confidence, my trust in God, I tried to align my will and listen to my God conscience and listen to my gut instincts. I remember saying to myself, how do I avoid this ever happening again? I was freaking out. Like, you can't trust anybody. But, the reply in my head was, well, just don't ignore your gut instincts next time, dummy. And then it was like a bell. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I love how you say that because that's so true. I think for all of us, there's that moment when you look back and you think to yourself, why did I put up with that? And the reason is, we didn't know ourselves. And a lot of us also, we grew up with dysfunction. So that's what we know. So here we are, we grow up that way. Then we get into a relationship, an entanglement, whatever you want to say, and we continue on with that dysfunction because that's what that's all we know. That's what life is to us. But when Joe was talking about God, he's so right that a very similar thing happened to me as to Joe. God became very present in our life. When I first got involved with my ex, God was not present in my life. I always believed in God. I would have told you that I believed in God, but I did not live my life in any way giving any consideration to Him or what He wanted for me. Once this entanglement was over and it was done, and I really started to grow and change and thrive, I got closer to God. And what Joe's saying, just listen to your gut instinct. It's right in front of you. So once you understand that and learn to live that way, everything changes. So for me, depending on God, making my decisions based on Him made it so that I could trust myself. And now I have a good relationship. And a lot of people, that doesn't happen because you don't ever get to that point that you need to get to. So Joe, what about losing people but gaining real ones?
That wasn't too extreme. Now, I know a lot of people where, they lost family members like yourself,
Yeah.
but there was many, many, many people. In my case, I tended to isolate myself from my friends and family when I was with the narcissist. I don't know if it was an unconscious thing that I was being abused and allowing it to happen. And, so I didn't talk too much about my personal life. There were some people, mutual acquaintances, that believed her, and I was really pissed off at first. But, again, getting honest with myself, she pulled the wool over my eyes, and I helped with that by ignoring the red flags. But she did that to me, and I, quote unquote, knew her for 20 years. Where here's a few acquaintances that had known both of us for a few. They tended to, they took her aside. I couldn't really get upset with that because she's a master manipulator and liar. So, but I know in your case it was different.
Well, in my case, yeah, I did. I know I was going to say I lost my family. It wasn't really a loss at all for me to for that to happen. I grew up and I had a terrible environment in my home. I grew up, my father was a narcissist, my mother was codependent. I have a small family. I do have extended family, but my father, the narcissist, well, my mother's side of the family, there's a lot of people on that side. He didn't like her side of the family. He kept her isolated from them. His own family was very small. So I grew up, even though I have a large extended family, I was never around them. So it was just this small, immediate family. As I got older, and especially towards the end of my entanglement with my ex, and I started seeing, you know what, this isn't right. This isn't how it should be. And when I told my family outright, they knew I was abused. They knew these things, and they still thought I should be with him. I couldn't move forward having them still in my life. But at the same time, I've made tremendous friends. I have such good people in my life. So for everybody that I lost, I gained, somebody that's 100 times better. So my experience with narcissistic abuse is that, yeah, during the recovery, maybe you're going to lose people, but it's not really a loss when you consider who you're losing. But gaining amazing people, that's been my experience, and it's been wonderful. I know it's a little bit different for you, Joe, but I think between the two of us, we've kind of run the gamut here.
Yeah, we covered all the bases for sure.
What about no closure? Not having any closure from the narcissist?
That was a tough one. It was the concept of a personality disorder was so foreign to me. I didn't think like these things existed. It was funny. I would watch like crime shows on TV when they talk about psychopaths and sociopaths and all that. I never equated it to it could be like somebody that just is pure evil that doesn't necessarily kill anybody, but they do. I think they do kill souls, many of them. Um, I was waiting around for an apology, and what happened is, and I heard many YouTube channels, and they're so true, is like I had to accept the apology that I never got. Like I had to accept that their defense mechanism, along with their malignant attitudes and their choice of doing the wrong things, that wasn't coming. The closure had to come from within. And it takes time to kind of to allow your brain to rewire. We're listening to all these YouTube videos and working on ourselves. Like there's things going on in our brain, rewiring of synapses and new ones routing. It just, closure had to come from within to accept like, okay, I'm not going to get any closure from her. How about closure from myself and forgiving myself, forgiving the narcissist, thanking God for, I guess it was like a curse and a blessing at the same time.
Yeah, no closure, that's a tricky one because you think to yourself, I thought this all the time. I couldn't understand how my ex couldn't see how messed up he was. And I guess like that's part of being a narcissist, right? But I thought to myself, it's so simple if he could just see this. So during the entanglement, I wanted him to change. I wanted him to see these, what I thought were obvious things. When the entanglement was over, that kind of carried on. It went forward with me for a little bit. I kept thinking, why doesn't he understand this? Things could be so much better, not just necessarily with us being together, but just as we move forward with the kids. How can he not see this? And you get to a point where you understand he or she, they're never going to understand it. There's something so fundamentally wrong with these people, these things, these beings, that you are never going to get closure from them. But you can move forward without closure when you start focusing on your own healing. Because even to this day, and it's been several years, and I know it's the same with Joe, the narcissist doesn't change. They don't grow. They don't thrive. Like me, I'm a completely different person. So is Joe than we were 5 years ago, 2 years ago. We've been together for almost a year. We're different people even from just the last year. That never happens with the narcissist. They're always the same. And who they are is somebody who is never going to see reality. So it's up to us to see our own reality. Because even though it's painful, that we don't get closure that would make our life so much easier. And for so many people, like I'm sure like with Joe, we spoke earlier in the video, it took him a long time to heal. If he had gotten that closure, that probably would have helped him tremendously. But the reality is that what we do have is that we can move forward and live new, authentic lives.
Yeah, that's why it's so important. And I want to reiterate this with the shadow work and like doing the work inside to look at your part. What was my role in this and getting honest with myself in my experience where I ignored red flags? Because those things I can change. Like, if there's a problem, I sure as hell hope it's me, because if it is, then I got a chance to change it.
Yeah.
I came to realize that the narcissist was just being a narcissist. They happen to be very vile and evil beings. But the journey to my relationship with myself kind of left the narcissist in the dust, man. You know, I was afraid to stop playing the give and take in that cat and mouse game, because I knew from listening to other people that with narcissists, even negative supply is supply. I knew if I removed myself, she'd find supply from somebody else or some other people or whatever the case is. And I knew I was going to be forgotten. And that would mask my delusion that she loved me. She just, was different. The closure truly has to be like an acceptance, to accept everything as it is right now. Until I could come to accept everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be, then I could never find any peace or serenity until I could accept everything as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Joe. All right, that leads us to the last one, discovering your true self.
Yeah, that's a journey unto itself. It started with the relationship with God, me crying out because I was in so much pain, learning about the little boy inside that was hurt younger. You want to talk about narcissists having childhood trauma? How about all this codependence, having like horrific childhood trauma? That's funny because I've heard it said before. Some people argue, well, it's a personality disorder. It's not really their fault. It's just like, there's no excuse. Like, having a childhood trauma is no excuse to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all of us codependents would be assholes too. And even though I can be from time to time, not like that, like where I total disregard for anything and utter destruction of everyone. Take it from here. What do you think, Sharon?
Yeah, discovering my true self has been really a blessing in disguise when it comes to narcissistic abuse. It's kind of strange in a way when you think about it. One of the worst things that can happen to you is being involved with a narcissist. But at the same time, the narcissist is almost a catalyst to push you into the potential that you always had but never were able to fulfill. And that's what happened to me with Joe, with so many people. You get on the other side and you feel comfortable in your skin, finally. Because when you're with a narcissist, you're not comfortable in your own skin. You're miserable. You're living with somebody who actively wants bad things to happen to you, who actively is lying to you, cheating on you, manipulating you, whatever else they do. But once it's over and you discover your true self, it's like there's this potential. Like if you think about, a baby who's born, it has potential to be who knows what. But you don't fulfill that potential when you're growing up, like so many of us did in narcissistic households, and then that dysfunction manifests into a narcissistic relationship. But when you're out, when you are so blessed to be out, you can be your true self, the potential that was always in you. It's still there. It doesn't go anywhere. It can still blossom. It's like a seed. It just needs to be watered. That doesn't happen for the narcissist, but it does happen to us. So we feel pain in a way that the narcissist doesn't, but we can recover and feel joy as well in a way that the narcissist can't. So Joe, that brings us to the end of the video, but before I end, I just wanted to say, what do you think about next week's video?
You got me on that one, Shay. Maybe we could read some comments for this one and see if we can come up with something good.
Joe, you're forgetting what we're doing for next week's video.
Oh, God, the animals.
Yes.
Okay, we got to give them a tour of our Noah's Ark.
You guys should see us right now. If you could see us, you'd be laughing. We each have a sugar glider. We're holding sugar gliders in these little pouches. Joe has Beye, I have Coco. And next week, we're going to do a video where we show you all the animals. And when I say this, it's true. Offhand, I don't know how many animals we have. Joe, do you know how many we have?
30 maybe with the snakes and the reptiles and all that stuff. It's kind of crazy.
It's around there. So if you are interested, next week, Joe and I are going to, well, actually, I asked this question on the community page, and overwhelmingly people said that they wanted to see this. We're going to give you a little animal tour. So we'll take a little break from narcissism and give you a little animal tour. We have reptiles, marsupials, amphibians, mammals, fish. Yes,
Yep.
we have it all. So if you're interested in that, definitely stay tuned and you will see them. And in the meantime, I hope everybody enjoyed the video. I hope that you have a wonderful week. And I will see you again on Wednesday. And Joe will definitely be back next week with the 30 plus animals that live in the house with us.
You'll need a hand with that. I better be there.
Bye, everybody.